Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Creative Writing Lab. In this video, we will talk about some of the very specific struggles, concerns, and fears that writers face when they're writing memoir. The first one is, how do you write about yourself? So, you must, no matter how hard it is, treat yourself as a character too. With flaws, with foibles, with beauties, goodness, mistakes. Some of you will be very tempted to write yourself as an extreme, as one or the other, depending on how you are feeling about yourself that day. Some of you will be tempted to write yourself as being unconditionally correct, inherently and thoroughly good, perpetually infallible, kind, perfect. Don't do it. Others will want to do the opposite. You will want to write yourself as either wrong or wronged, as terrible, as clumsy, as foolish, laughable. Don't do that either. Step outside of yourself. Please write about yourself with the complexity, humor, grace, and nuance that you deserve. Every character deserves that. So do you. Here's an excerpt from a little essay called Ode to Me. It's by Maya Klein and it is in Brevity magazine, free to read online. So I want to show you how this writer explores the self with that complexity, nuance, and humor that we just talked about. It's true, in certain instances, I'm better than others. I'm better than people who start their sentences with no offense. I'm better than people who do not properly greet the mailman, even though given the chance, he will get your phone number and call whenever you have mail, and it will always be when you're home in your pajamas during the day, and you'll have to go downstairs to sign for something and engage in 7 to 10 minutes of conversation. Still, if you do not greet the mailman, I am better than you. She goes on. Here's another bit. When I am not smoking, I'm better than all smokers. When I'm smoking, I'm better than smokers who smoke before 10 a.m. It's true. In certain instances, other people are better than me. People who make their own pesto are better than me. People who aren't sarcastic are better than me. People who are both financially responsible and haven't had privilege are better than me. People who have patience, genuine patience, not the kind I need to cultivate while listening to a friend describe a dream, not the kind of practice makes perfect patience I rely on. People who leave some things to the imagination are better than me. People who are quick to forgive are better than me. People who know how to purchase, apply, and wear makeup are better than me. Here's another really good question. When a story you want to write includes other people, people you care about, how do you write it? How do you write it without hurting their feelings? All right. So in the first draft, I don't worry about hurting anybody's feelings. That first draft is just for me. Nobody will ever see it. If they see it, it's because they were snooping. Because I would not show my first draft to anybody, and neither should you. In the second draft, I start to pare things away, I start to adjust things, I start to fine-tune things and polish things, among other elements, but according to how the other people affected by those stories will feel. While you can't know how other people will feel, you can try your best to keep your intentions clean. You can do this by asking yourself, why am I writing this story? Why am I writing about this person's role in this story? I received some advice early on, and I'll pass it on to you. Whenever possible, tell your own secrets, not other people's. I'll add something to that piece of advice. with shared secrets. For example, family secrets or a secret that somebody else is affected by. Tread carefully. You must honor your truth and your intentions. But if you do so, please be prepared for the cost. So be brave, be incendiary, write what will shake, transform, and speak truth to power, but make sure that your reasons are true, clean, necessary. Whenever possible, offer grace, nuance, and a well-rounded image of the character, of the person who is being included in this narrative. Here's another question. How do you write grace, nuance, complexity about those who've hurt you, who've annoyed you, who've frustrated you? Every single character in your memoir has a vast, rich palace of complex ideas, troubles, griefs, terrors, tenderness. Even the people you think were boring, antagonistic, even they have those complexities to them. Perhaps in your story, let's say that showing their negative side, showing the damage they did is necessary. Even then, it helps the reader understand the situation and read the character better if you write this character in full knowledge and complexity. How? Spend some time thinking about this person as a protagonist of their own life and story. Think about them and how they exist outside of their relationship with you. For example, when they said that hurtful thing to you, rewind to something that may have happened to them yesterday, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, something that made them this way, something that planted the seed, planted the cause. Here's an example. It's from Lydia Yuknavich's portrayal of her father, who was very abusive, in The Chronology of Water. She says, describing her father, "Before his hands moved against us, he was an architect, lover of art. Before my father was an architect, he was a navigator in the Korean War. Before my father was a navigator, he was an artist. Before my father was an artist, he was an athlete. Before my father was an athlete, he was an unhappy altar boy. That's the best I can do, I think. God damn it. Let me try again." And as the story continues, the portrait of her father becomes more and more complex and compelling. We're still really, really devastated. I was, at least. The reader is still really devastated by the abuse upon his children. But we see him as a full character, which makes the narrative more compelling. Here's a question that comes up a lot, especially when writing about a loved one or a loved one who has passed. How do you write nonfiction memoir that is true, 100% factually accurate, and still captures this character's essence, especially when memory is so tricky? How can you do this? How can you capture this person while only sticking to the exact facts that can be verified? This is something that nonfiction writers have argued about for a long time. I think that there are ways in memoir to, through the imaginative lens, veer slightly away from the concrete, absolute facts in order to enliven and in order to honor the emotional truth. There's this book that I'm completely in love with. It's called Say Her Name. It's by Francisco Goldman. And he wrote this book about his wife after she died. And I want to read to you a section of his interview where he talks about playing with facts and the imagination. where he talks about why he calls this a novel, but a true novel. Here's what he says. For me, the most important thing was that Aura, his wife, had to get all the good lines. I thought, well, what would she have said? What might she have said? I would trade back and forth, back and forth. There were things in the novel that I thought of or said that I would give to her, which is what the essence of love is anyway. Why love is so important. Because for once in your life, you leave yourself and all your imagination. You're trying to enter the other person and think of what they feel, what they want, and how they are experiencing it. That is very rare, or at least it was in my life. One way to navigate it is the way he has, is to be transparent about the liberties you take. Here's Debbie Reynolds and Dorian Hanaway have the following disclaimer for the book Unsinkable. They say, the conversations in the book all come from the author's recollections, though they are not written to represent word-for-word transcripts. Rather, the author has retold them in a way that evokes the feeling and meaning of what was said. And in all instances, the essence of the dialogue is accurate. You can use a disclaimer like this to remain truthful and still honor your artistic impulses. Today's prompt is directly from Dorothea Brande's book, Becoming a Writer. This came out in the 1930s. The book's prompt, like the book itself, has kind of an imperative tone, but I've tried this prompt and I have read the book, and both are excellent. Pay close attention to it because, like I said, it's a little different from the prompts you and I usually do in these videos. Here it is. Imagine you are walking through a door. From the moment you stand on the threshold, turn yourself into your object of attention. What do you look like standing there? How do you walk? What, if you knew nothing about yourself, could be gathered of you, your character, your background, and your purpose there at that minute? All right. So, you're going to observe yourself as you would a stranger. Let's set a 7-minute timer and begin. That is our timer. I think that this is a particularly uncomfortable prompt, which sounds like a bad thing, but it's not. Especially if you are planning to write memoir, it is so important to learn to depict yourself and versions of yourself. So I'm glad you tried it with me. Thank you so much for writing with me, for listening with me. Have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves. And until next time.